The rhythm of existence in ancient Egypt moved at a gentle pace, shaped by the unwavering presence of the Nile and the sun's dependable arc through the heavens. Days did not break sharply from one another, but instead merged into an unbroken stream of routines carried out with deliberate care and quiet patience. The arrival of morning was never abrupt. Instead, it unfolded in stages, with darkness gradually yielding to light that crept softly over the river's surface and stretched across the adjacent farmland. Already carrying warmth from the day before, the dwellings that lined the Nile welcomed their inhabitants back to waking. People stirred without haste, their bodies attuned to the natural brightening around them. The transition from sleep came quietly, with no jarring interruptions to disturb their rest. Early morning air remained still and peaceful, infused with the mingled scents of river water, fertile mud, and vegetation. These were the hours when equilibrium felt most present, before heat and labor reclaimed the day. The morning began as a shared experience within households. Clay vessels released their stored water. The simple act of washing faces and hands brought a lingering coolness to the skin. Loose linen garments were settled onto bodies for ease rather than display. Each movement carried the confidence of long practice, guided more by muscle memory than conscious decision. Such rituals were not viewed as obligations, but as seamless bridges between rest and the day's activities. Beyond the walls, the Nile pursued its ancient course, unaffected by human plans yet fundamental to every dimension of survival. Early light danced across its waters in gentle sparkles, while boats lay quiet against the banks. Fishermen worked their nets without speaking, their fingers following patterns etched into memory. Those who worked the land made their way toward distant fields, tools slung across their backs, footsteps sure and practiced. The river held authority over when life could progress and when it must pause. Rather than seeking control over these waters, people watched, honored, and aligned their lives with the patterns it established. With the sun's continued ascent, activity across the landscape intensified. Fields came alive with measured motion as farmers tended their plants and repositioned water channels to draw the river's nourishment into the earth. Each task relied on wisdom inherited across countless generations. Experimentation was rare, and urgency had no place. Proven methods were maintained. Failures became lessons preserved in collective memory. Advancement came through sustained repetition rather than rapid innovation. Within settlements both large and small, the day's work proceeded with unwavering composure. Craftspeople opened their spaces as sunlight filled the pathways between buildings. Those who worked with clay turned their wheels in smooth, practiced arcs, shaping vessels with unhurried precision. Weavers transformed linen fibers into fabric, their hands tracing repetitive motions that demanded endurance more than force. Workers in stone chipped methodically at quarried blocks, understanding that modest progress, when accumulated over time, yielded significant results. Expertise earned respect not for its impressiveness, but for its consistency and dependability. Approaching the middle of the day, heat made its presence increasingly felt. The shadows contracted without any spoken instruction. Movement throughout the land began to slow. Where shade presented itself, people gathered, leaning against walls still cool from the night or settling near the river where air currents provided gentle relief. Food remained uncomplicated and sustaining. Bread accompanied vegetables, dates, and water, providing adequate nourishment. These meals were consumed in quiet, serving physical needs without ceremony or distraction. The measurement of time in this ancient civilization was not a matter of precision. Instead, it was felt through observation. The sun's placement overhead, the intensity of surrounding heat, the accumulation of weariness in muscles and joints, all these elements communicated what the next appropriate action should be. There existed no compulsion to occupy every available moment. Natural pauses were recognized as integral to existence, not as wasted intervals. Once the afternoon heat began its retreat, work resumed with gentle momentum. Tasks reached completion when circumstances allowed. Tools received careful cleaning before being stored deliberately. As light transformed and shadows extended themselves across the landscape, the day's grip gradually loosened. The land itself appeared to decelerate, making way for evening's approach. The sun's descent toward the distant horizon drew people back to their dwellings. Across the Nile's surface, the transforming sky appeared in subdued golds and deepening blues. Familiar voices echoed once more through known spaces. Fires kindled softly, lamps were readied, their flames kept small and manageable. Darkness did not arrive as a disruption, but as the day's logical completion. The evening meal became a communal experience, characterized by simplicity. Words, when spoken, came quietly and without force. Comfortable silence settled naturally in the spaces between conversation. The physical demands of daylight hours settled into bodies, bringing quiet contentment rather than crushing fatigue. As night deepened its hold, the external world receded. Desert temperatures dropped quickly. Stars emerged in brilliant abundance, populating the sky without interference from artificial illumination. Sleep arrived as naturally as breathing. Lamp flames dimmed and then disappeared entirely. Bodies found rest in close proximity within accustomed spaces. Respiration slowed its pace. Muscular tension dissolved. Dreams drifted in gently, filled with recurring images of water, light, and familiar memory. While the Nile pursued its ceaseless journey beneath the star-filled darkness, another cycle of ancient Egyptian life slipped quietly into the next, prepared to begin again with the sun's inevitable return. When night had fully claimed the land, the sounds that filled the daylight hours faded into profound and comforting stillness. Heat stored within mud brick construction gradually escaped into cooler air, establishing a pleasant equilibrium that invited rest. Within homes, the wavering glow of small lamps provided just enough illumination for movement before dimming as sleep preparations concluded. Remaining awake beyond necessity held no appeal. The body recognized nightfall's message without objection. Beyond the walls, the Nile maintained its own form of wakefulness. Its perpetual motion created a sound so constant it nearly escaped notice, yet it provided deep reassurance. This rhythm had accompanied sleep since people's earliest memories. It conveyed persistence, a reminder that even during human rest, life proceeded with calm reliability. Above, the night sky felt simultaneously immense and intimate. Stars punctured the darkness in sharp, countless points, their brilliance uncompromised by human light sources. Many among the population knew these celestial arrangements intimately, not as distant phenomena, but as indicators of seasonal change and time's passage. After brief observation, they turned away, allowing darkness to bring the day's final closure. Rest in this ancient world ran deep and remained largely undisturbed. Days organized around natural illumination and genuine physical exertion left little room for restless energy. Breathing found its natural, slower rhythm. Muscles released their held tension. Mental focus dissolved without difficulty. Dreams moved with gentle ease, frequently populated by recognizable imagery: water, cultivated land, and open sky. The night's deepest hours passed in tranquility. Watchmen made slow rounds through settlements and temple grounds, their modest lamps burning steadily, their footfalls measured and even. No urgency colored their movements. Night was anticipated to remain peaceful, and overwhelmingly it fulfilled that expectation. Security emerged from established patterns, from the comfort of familiarity, and from the community's synchronized rhythm. Temple interiors held an even deeper quality of stillness. Stone construction trapped the cool air. Painted imagery and carved representations rested in shadow, revealed only by the faintest traces of light. These sacred spaces carried a timeless quality, seemingly untouched by the succession of individual days. Faith here was not expressed through volume or spectacle. It remained steady, integrated into daily existence as naturally as work and rest. Without any distinct moment marking the transition, darkness began its gradual softening. Light gathered at the sky's margins, stars vanished one after another. The landscape readied itself for morning before any human awareness stirred. Air temperatures dropped slightly further, then stabilized, as though holding a breath. Before long, birds began their activity along the river's edge. Their vocalizations were soft and expected, merging seamlessly with the sound of flowing water. Inside dwellings, people continued sleeping for additional time, held within profound rest. The night had fulfilled its purpose. Waking, when it arrived, came gently. Eyes opened to muted light. Bodies extended themselves slowly. No immediate necessity demanded rising. Morning could afford to wait. The sun remained patient. Doors parted quietly. People emerged to meet cool air against their skin. Water was drawn once more. Faces received washing. Linen clothing was repositioned. Morning rituals returned without conscious effort, linking this day to innumerable previous days. Fields required attention again. Those who farmed walked toward them with steady, confident steps, directed by accumulated experience rather than fresh instruction. Water traveled through its appointed channels as it always had, delivering nourishment to the soil. Along the river, boats began stirring, following paths worn familiar through repetition. Throughout the towns, workshops reopened, tools found their places, projects resumed from the previous evening's stopping point. Advancement came slowly but with certainty, constructed from small recurring actions rather than dramatic transformation. As the sun achieved greater height, warmth made its return, bringing with it the characteristic slowing of activity. Shade became welcome. Rest was accepted without accompanying guilt. Food was distributed simply, marking time's passage without disrupting its flow. Thus life throughout ancient Egypt proceeded, with day dissolving into night and night yielding once more to day, orchestrated by light, water, and patience. Nothing required rushing. Nothing demanded force. The established rhythm maintained everything in equilibrium, moving life steadily forward, exactly as it had since time beyond memory. With the day advancing once again, the Nile Valley landscape settled into recognizable balance. Warmth from the sun reached the earth in steady measure, avoiding harshness, and human activity adjusted to mirror this pace. Nothing within the fabric of daily existence demanded sudden exertion. Everything emerged through established habit and inherited memory, molded by ancestors who had lived identically before. The rhythm was absorbed by children early in life. They tracked adults through courtyards and into fields. Observing far more than they spoke, they discovered when to retreat from intense heat, when to transport water, when to seek shade's refuge. Understanding was internalized quietly, without structured teaching, becoming embodied knowledge long before conscious awareness developed. Throughout the fields, patient work persisted. Where the river's water penetrated, the soil turned dark and fertile. Hands moved through earth with attentive care, assessing its character, redirecting channels to shepherd the flow. Agricultural practice here did not constitute warfare against nature, but rather collaboration with it. The Nile offered its gifts, and people answered with focus and moderation. Near the riverbanks, those who fished examined their nets and woven baskets. Their actions proceeded slowly and with intention. No pressure existed to extract more from the water than circumstances required. The river's reliability had never faltered, and confidence in its patterns diminished the need for haste. Boats drifted in proximity to shore, secured loosely, swaying gently with the current's movement. Within the towns, Daily existence remained measured and self-contained. Streets wound narrowly beneath shade. Movement maintained its calm quality. People acknowledged one another quietly, sharing brief words or simple gestures. A sense of mutual comprehension prevailed. All participants understood the day's requirements, eliminating the need for explanation. Craftspeople maintained their work throughout the day's middle hours. Clay accepted new forms, linen progressed into woven cloth, stone surfaces received gradual smoothing. These occupations demanded attention while simultaneously encouraging tranquility. Repetition brought mental settling. Progress manifested in increments so small they nearly escaped detection. A vessel emerged slowly into being. Cloth extended itself row upon row. Stone disclosed its inherent form across extended time. When heat intensified, activities softened accordingly. People paused wherever they found themselves. Shade acquired value. Walls cooled overnight, provided relief. Rest received serious treatment, understood as necessity rather than indulgence. Bodies conserved energy instinctively, requiring no external instruction. Meals were consumed simply, frequently without abandoning one's resting location. Bread and water proved sufficient. Conversation, if it emerged, remained quiet and natural. Silence fit comfortably within these intervals, carrying no sense of awkwardness. The afternoon hours passed with gentle ease. Where possible, tasks reached completion. Some were deferred to future days without concern. No expectation existed that all work must achieve immediate conclusion. Tomorrow would bring the sun's return, along with renewed opportunity for continuation. When light began its transformation again, the landscape responded. Shadows stretched themselves across fields and pathways. Air temperatures decreased slightly. Activity resumed as people collected their implements and oriented themselves homeward. The river's surface reflected the changing sky, its appearance shifting from brilliant blue toward gentler hues. Evening made its approach without formal announcement. Fires received preparation once more. Lamps were set ready, homes filled with subdued activity. The external world began its withdrawal, and focus shifted inward. Another day relinquished its hold. Voices grew softer. The day's physical demands settled into bodies, introducing a familiar quality of calm. Darkness returned gradually, not as conclusion, but as continuation. And so existence in ancient Egypt moved forward, unhurried, balanced and steady, propelled by repetition, guided by the river and the vast sky, resting perpetually within the same enduring rhythm. Evening descended once more, and light across the Nile transformed into richer shades of gold and blue. Warmth departed the day slowly, permitting the land to cool without sudden shock. People's movements grew gentler now, with awareness that exertion was approaching its end. Tools were positioned carefully for tomorrow's easy retrieval. Hands received washing in cool water drawn from storage vessels. Tired feet carried weary bodies back into known spaces. Inside the dwellings, air felt calm and enclosed. Mud brick construction maintained equilibrium between warmth and coolness, establishing steady comfort. Small fires were kindled, not to dominate interior space, but to provide measured warmth. Lamps received sparing use. Their illumination did not banish darkness, but instead softened it, permitting shadows to occupy their proper places. Families assembled in close proximity. Evening meals remained simple and restorative, designed to replenish rather than distract. Bread was divided quietly. Food passed between people without rush. When conversation arose, it stayed low and unforced. Silence settled naturally in the intervals between words, bringing no discomfort. The day no longer made demands on attention. Beyond the walls, activity's sounds diminished. Boats came to rest along the river's edge. Animals settled themselves. The desert surrendered its final heat into the expansive sky. Insects filled the air with steady humming that merged seamlessly with flowing water's sound. The world felt complete, suspended between motion and stillness. As darkness increased its depth, the sky revealed itself fully. Stars appeared in bright profusion, their light undiluted by anything of human creation. People glanced upward briefly, recognizing configurations that had directed life across generations. These stellar patterns were neither distant nor abstract. They existed as familiar markers, confirmations that time advanced steadily and predictably. Within homes, lamps received dimming and then extinction. Bedding was arranged without ceremony. Bodies discovered rest in accustomed positions. No struggle accompanied the day's release. Fatigue carried honesty and physicality, earned through natural exertion rather than strain. Breathing decelerated, muscular systems relaxed. Mental focus dissolved without resistance. Sleep made its gentle arrival. Dreams assembled themselves without urgency, frequently shaped by the day's recurring images. Water traveling through channels, light traversing fields, the quiet constancy of the river. Rest ran deep and undisturbed, supported by darkness and silence. The night advanced without disturbance. Where necessary, guards moved slowly, their lamps burning steadily and small. Temples rested within shadow, their stone walls cool and motionless. The land maintained its quiet with confidence, absent fear. Almost imperceptibly, the night's deepest portion began to yield. The sky shifted subtly, stars faded sequentially, air cooled marginally more, then achieved steadiness. Everything prepared itself once more for morning's approach. Before anyone stirred, the Nile continued its perpetual journey. Water flowed as it eternally had, advancing life without interruption. The land waited with patience. Soon enough, light would make its return. Another day would commence. The cycle would persist, unbroken and familiar. Within this repetition, life throughout ancient Egypt discovered its calm, directed by the river, molded by the sun, and maintained by the quiet equilibrium between effort and rest. As night advanced forward, nothing suggested incompleteness. The land rested precisely as it should, embraced by calm that required no explanation. The Nile maintained its steady flow through darkness, neither accelerating nor decelerating from its established pace. It showed no reaction to night or day. It simply persisted, transporting water and life through the land without cessation. Within the homes, sleep remained profound and continuous. Bodies rested in positions made familiar through years of repetition. Heat from daylight hours had completely dissipated, leaving behind air that felt cool and gentle against skin. Breathing maintained its slow, even rhythm. No cause existed to wake, no sound making demands on attention. Beyond the river's reach, the desert extended vast and quiet. Its stillness was not vacancy. It held accumulated warmth from innumerable days and the memory of extended nights. Beneath the open sky, stars pursued their gradual paths, constant and reliable. People had observed these identical movements across generations, developing trust in their dependable return. During these hours, time felt expansive. No sense of urgency existed, no pressure to make preparations. The world occupied a state of pause that felt whole rather than provisional. Night was not simply something to traverse quickly, it represented necessary space, permitting life to restore itself. The darkness softened once more, gradually, not with suddenness, not with drama. A subtle transformation appeared at the sky's periphery, barely perceptible. Air shifted marginally. The river reflected this change long before clear visibility permitted. Birds began movement near the water. Their activity was subdued, cautious, as though respecting the prevailing calm. Inside dwellings, people remained in sleep, their rest uninterrupted. The night still claimed them. When waking ultimately came, it did so with gentleness. Eyes opened in slow degrees, bodies stretched without strain. No pressing need demanded immediate rising. Morning would exercise patience. The sun had always shown patience. Doors parted quietly. People stepped into open air and encountered early morning's coolness. The river remained there, constant and familiar. Light made its soft return, dispersing across fields and water without distinction. Daily existence resumed without thought or deliberate planning. Water was drawn forth, hands received washing, linen garments were adjusted into place. These actions connected one morning to those that followed, forming an uninterrupted chain of routine and familiarity. Fields awaited care once again. Those who farmed returned to their labor, directed by accumulated experience rather than fresh instruction. Water traveled through channels as it perpetually had, delivering nourishment to soil. Boats began drifting along well-known paths. Towns stirred with gentle motion, producing neither noise nor rush. With the sun's continued rise, warmth made its return, and movement increased in natural response. The day unfolded according to its inherent pace, organized by light, heat, and signals from the body. Nothing required forceful intervention. Everything responded appropriately. Thus, life throughout ancient Egypt persisted, day succeeding night, night yielding to day, held together by repetition, patience, and trust in the rhythm that had sustained it across such extended time. The river maintained its flow, the sky executed its turn. People lived, labored, rested, and slept, carried quietly forward by time itself. With morning's increasing brightness, life assumed once more its familiar configuration. The sun climbed in steady progression, delivering warmth to the land without urgency. Along the Nile's length, reflections created gentle shimmers, and the river's surface transported light forward, distributing it across fields and settlements alike. People moved through this brightness with natural ease, directed by habits learned so thoroughly they demanded no conscious thought. Children occupied themselves near doorways and shaded courtyards, their movements quiet and measured. They paused frequently to observe adults at work, absorbing lessons without direct teaching. They learned patience's value by witnessing its daily practice. Nothing within their environment suggested that speed held necessity. Throughout the fields, work proceeded with continued calm. Farmers made adjustments to irrigation channels, listening to water's sound as it penetrated soil. The earth responded in gradual fashion, darkening with absorption of the river's offering. This partnership between land and water gave shape to everything. People did not issue commands to it. They followed its lead. Along the river's banks, small boats moved with gentle motion, directed by steady hands. Goods traveled short distances, linking nearby locations without haste. Travel was not concerned with rapid arrival. It focused on steady, safe movement, maintaining harmony with the current. Throughout the settlements, daily existence remained self-contained and harmonious. Workshops maintained their operations during the middle hours, though activity decelerated as temperatures rose. Those who worked with their hands paused frequently, cleaning their palms, rolling their shoulders, seeking shade's relief before returning to their labor. Forward movement did not rely on uninterrupted exertion. It depended on the willingness to return repeatedly. With midday's passage, stillness made its natural return. Heat caused the landscape to shimmer faintly. People rested in their current locations, granting their bodies time for recovery. These intervals contained no restless energy. Time felt abundant, not vacant. Even complete inactivity seemed aligned with the day's underlying purpose. When activity resumed during afternoon hours, it did so with gentle momentum. Tasks found continuation without pressure. Some work reached completion. Other work was deferred to future days. The sun initiated its gradual descent, bringing with it the quiet recognition that exertion had natural boundaries. Light underwent its transformation once again. Shadows extended themselves across the ground. Air temperatures dropped just enough to restore comfort. People collected their implements and oriented themselves towards home, carrying the tranquil satisfaction that comes from a day experienced fully without excess. Evening made its return in recognizable fashion. Fires received preparation. Lamps burned briefly. The world contracted inward, as it perpetually had. Voices diminished, external sounds quieted, darkness approached without meeting resistance. With night settling, the river maintained its perpetual movement beneath stellar light. Homes came to rest, bodies released their tension. Sleep exercised patience. Once more, life throughout ancient Egypt advanced exactly as it had across generations, orchestrated by the river, molded by the sun, and maintained by the quiet equilibrium between exertion and rest. As afternoon settled with greater depth into the day, heat achieved steadiness rather than becoming oppressive. The landscape did not struggle against it, and human inhabitants followed the same acceptance. Existence along the Nile had undergone long shaping by this warmth, and physical bodies made natural adjustments, preserving energy without conscious deliberation. Activity became economical, intentional, and composed. Throughout the fields, those who farmed worked in quiet coordination. Speech occurred infrequently because words were unnecessary. Each individual comprehended their position within the work's rhythm. Water traveled through channels carved with care into the earth, directed by small corrections made with hands and uncomplicated tools. The sound created by water moving through soil was gentle and unceasing, a sound that merged into the texture of daily existence. Soil accepted water in gradual fashion, darkening as it absorbed what it required. Nothing occurred instantaneously. Growth was anticipated to demand time. Seeds rested beneath the surface, invisible but relied upon. People did not inspect them with constant frequency. They understood the river would make its return, and the sun would achieve its rise again. That understanding proved sufficient. Near the riverbank, those who fished maintained their patience. Nets underwent checking and resetting. Baskets were raised and lowered once more. Sometimes the river offered generously, sometimes it provided little. Regardless, no anger directed itself towards it. The Nile was not something to engage in argument with. It was something to inhabit space beside. Boats traveled quietly, their movements smooth and measured. Oars entered the water in steady rhythm, generating small ripples that expanded and dissolved quickly. Travel covered short, familiar distances. Distances were understood not through numerical measurement, but through how long the body recalled the journey requiring. Comfort resided in that familiarity. Throughout the towns, shaded pathways retained cooler air from earlier hours. People moved through them with deliberation, acknowledging one another through simple gestures. Extended conversation held no necessity. All participants shared comprehension of the day's configuration. Nothing unexpected received requirement. Craftspeople maintained their work with sustained patience. Clay vessels assumed form gradually beneath steady hands. Linen threads received careful guidance through looms, one movement succeeding the next in patterns that demanded attention while simultaneously encouraging tranquility. Stone underwent shaping through repeated, gentle impacts, each one advancing it toward its ultimate form. No pressure existed to achieve rapid completion. Quality emerged from time invested, not time conserved. As the sun initiated its gradual descent, the quality of illumination transformed. It grew warmer, gentler, less direct in its delivery. Shadows extended themselves across fields and pathways. The landscape responded with visible changes, releasing portions of the heat it had retained throughout daylight hours. Air shifted, becoming easier to draw into lungs. People registered this transformation immediately. Movements slowed further still. Tasks were brought to natural stopping points. Tools received cleaning and were positioned carefully aside, placed where they would undergo easy retrieval. Work did not terminate abruptly. It faded, resembling the light's own transformation. The return homeward constituted a quiet transition. Feet transported weary bodies along familiar routes. Hands made contact with walls that had received countless previous touches. Doors parted and closed with soft sounds. Within interior spaces, the coolness of shaded rooms provided relief without harsh contrast. Evening preparations followed simple, predictable patterns. Fires were kindled at low intensity, lamps received sparing employment. No attempt was made to convert night into day. Darkness arrived as expected and received welcome. It signified the conclusion of effort without passing judgment. Food underwent preparation and sharing in calm fashion. Bread was divided, vegetables were consumed slowly, water was distributed and sipped without hurry. These meals did not constitute events, they represented nourishment, integrated seamlessly into the day's rhythm. Conversation drifted in and out of existence. Sometimes narratives were shared, sometimes silence occupied the space instead. Both felt natural in their occurrence. No pressure existed to provide entertainment or distraction. Body and mind had already initiated their rest. Beyond the walls, the desert underwent rapid cooling. The sky achieved complete darkness. Stars made their emergence clear and steady, their illumination untouched by anything of human manufacture. They felt proximate, almost protective in nature, maintaining watch over the land and the river that sustained it. As lamps underwent dimming, homes settled into quietude. Bedding received simple arrangement. Bodies discovered familiar positions. Muscles released the exertion they had supported throughout the day. Breathing decelerated, the mind loosened its grasp on thought. Sleep made its gentle arrival, encountering no resistance. It came as continuation of the day rather than escape from it. Dreams assembled quietly, shaped by water, earth, and light. Rest ran deep and achieved completeness. Throughout the night's duration, the Nile maintained its movement, constant and patient. It did not accelerate toward morning, it did not decelerate for darkness, it simply flowed as it eternally had, advancing life forward without interruption. The landscape rested in proximity to it. Homes remained motionless. The desert lay open and vast beneath the sky. Time itself appeared to soften, stretching wide and calm. In gradual fashion, the night's deepest portion yielded to the faintest suggestion of morning's approach. The sky brightened almost imperceptibly. Stars faded in sequential order. Air cooled marginally more, then achieved steadiness. Birds began stirring along the riverbanks. Their movements were subdued and cautious. Within the homes, people continued sleeping, held within profound rest. The night had fulfilled its function. When waking ultimately arrived, it did so with gentleness, as it perpetually had. Eyes parted slowly, bodies extended themselves without strain. No urgency attached itself to rising. Morning would exercise patience. Thus the cycle persisted, unbroken and familiar in its pattern. Day succeeded night, labor succeeded rest. The river maintained its flow. Life throughout ancient Egypt advanced with composure, directed by light and water, sustained by patience, and held together by a rhythm that required no questioning. As early morning illumination extended farther across the landscape, it disclosed a world already prepared for its reception. Nothing rushed forward to greet the sun. Instead, the land absorbed it in gradual fashion, as it eternally had. The Nile reflected pale brightness in extended, gentle lines that moved slowly with the current's direction. The water transported light forward, making contact with fields, boats, and riverbanks without distinction. People stepped into morning without haste. Cool air persisted, enveloping bodies in a brief interval of comfort before heat made its return. Unshod feet made contact with compacted earth. Hands reached instinctively toward familiar implements. These movements did not constitute decision. They represented responses shaped by years of repetition and confidence in the day's rhythm. Throughout the fields, work resumed with quiet focus. Those who farmed inspected soil, sensing its moisture between their fingers, making adjustments to channels where water traveled with excessive speed or insufficient pace. The sound produced by flowing water was steady and soothing, a constant confirmation that the river remained generous when approached with patience. No one anticipated immediate outcomes. Growth was comprehended as something that unfolded across extended time. In nearby areas, animals moved with deliberation through the early hours. Oxen received gentle guidance, never experiencing force. Their pace mirrored the pace of the people who labored in proximity to them. Exertion was distributed, not imposed unilaterally. The land responded most favorably when approached with care, and all participants understood this without requiring verbal expression. Along the river's edge, daily movement persisted. Boats pushed away quietly from the shore, transporting small quantities of grain, tools, or people traveling short distances. The current established the pace. Oars entered the water slowly, rising and descending in rhythm that matched the steady breathing of morning. Travel was familiar, predictable, and composed. Throughout the town's shaded pathways filled in gradual fashion. Doors parted, courtyards came to life. The aroma of bread warming above small fires moved through the air. People acknowledged one another softly, sometimes through words, sometimes through simple nods. Elaborate exchange held no necessity. Presence alone proved sufficient. Workshops achieved activity again as light intensified. Craftspeople returned to incomplete tasks, resuming exactly where they had ceased the previous evening. Clay vessels continued assuming shape beneath steady hands. Looms resumed their quiet rhythm, thread traveling through fingers in patterns absorbed long ago. Stone underwent patient shaping, each careful strike contributing to work that might demand many days for completion. With the sun's continued climb, warmth distributed itself evenly across the land. Bodies responded in natural fashion, decelerating movement, conserving energy. Shade acquired value once more, not as refuge, but as component of the day's equilibrium. People paused in their current locations, resting without guilt or impatience. Midday made its quiet arrival. Air shimmered with slight intensity in the heat. Activity softened, then paused entirely. People remained motionless, permitting bodies to undergo recovery. These moments contained no restless quality. Stillness felt complete in itself. Time did not register as empty. It felt abundant in different fashion. Food underwent slow consumption. Bread was divided and distributed. Water provided internal cooling to bodies. Conversation remained minimal. Silence settled with comfort around those resting, carrying no expectation. These hours were not intended for exertion, they existed for preservation. When movement made its return during afternoon hours, it did so with gentle quality. Tasks resumed without urgency. The sun initiated its gradual descent, bringing with it a transformation in light's quality. Shadows achieved greater length, air grew easier to draw into lungs. People sensed the day releasing its grip. Fields received final inspection. Channels underwent adjustment. Tools were collected with care. Nothing experienced abandonment. Everything was positioned ready for the subsequent day. Work faded rather than terminating, following the same gradual rhythm as light's own transformation. The homeward return felt familiar and unremarkable, and that familiarity delivered comfort. Paths were known intimately, walls were recognized. Doors parted and closed with soft sounds. Within interior spaces, rooms retained the coolness of shade and the memory of innumerable previous evenings. Evening preparations proceeded without conscious thought. Fires were kindled at low intensity. Lamps received sparing use. Darkness was permitted entry, not repelled. It delivered relief, communicating that exertion no longer received requirement. Meals underwent quiet sharing. Hunger achieved satisfaction, thirst found ease. The body recognized that the day had been experienced fully, without excess. Conversation drifted in and out of existence. Silence occupied the space with ease. Beyond the walls, the desert surrendered the final portions of its heat. into the expansive sky. The river darkened, reflecting stars that appeared sequentially, clear and steady. The night felt expansive and calm, maintaining everything gently in position. As lamps underwent dimming, homes settled into stillness, bedding received simple arrangement, bodies discovered rest without resistance, muscles achieved relaxation, breathing decelerated, thought softened and drifted. Sleep made its natural arrival, transported by darkness and the quiet certainty that morning would make its return. Dreams assembled gently, shaped by recurring images of water, fields and sky that populated daily existence. Throughout the night's duration, the Nile maintained its endless movement. It did not accelerate toward dawn. It did not pause for darkness. It flowed as it eternally had, steady and patient in character. Time stretched expansively during these hours. Nothing demanded attention. Nothing remained incomplete. The world rested precisely where it belonged. Thus, life throughout ancient Egypt persisted, unhurried, balanced, and enduring in nature, directed by the river, molded by the sun, and sustained by a rhythm that requested patience and provided rest in exchange. As the cycle of days maintained its continuation, life along the Nile remained steady and familiar, shaped by small details that rarely underwent alteration. People did not conceptualize their lives as repetitive in nature. They experienced them as reliable. Each morning bore resemblance to the previous one, not because nothing occurred, but because what held greatest importance remained constant. The river continued establishing definition for the land. Its banks underwent slight shifting across time, but its presence never experienced wavering. People developed instinctive ability to interpret it, the water's height, the speed of its flow, the sound it produced against the reeds. These indicators guided decisions with greater effectiveness than any spoken instruction. When the river demonstrated generosity, work expanded with gentle quality. When it withdrew, effort underwent adjustment without resentment. Daily labor rarely occurred in isolation. Even when people worked in quiet fashion, they labored in proximity to one another. This closeness did not demand conversation. The shared rhythm of movement proved sufficient. Hands elevated and lowered, feet made contact with earth, tools moved in practiced arcs. Cooperation manifested naturally without planning. Children developed within this rhythm, absorbing it long before comprehension arrived. They acquired patience through observing seeds, requiring time for growth. They learned restraint by witnessing adults cease work when heat became substantial. They developed trust through observing the river's annual return. These lessons did not receive teaching. They were lived. Homes maintained simplicity and practicality. Walls displayed marks from years of utilization. Floors underwent smoothing by countless footsteps. These indicators of wear did not receive concealment or unnecessary repair. They were accepted as evidence of life experienced fully. Familiar spaces delivered comfort precisely because they transported memory. Throughout the day's duration, sound remained gentle in character. The world was not silent, but it never became overwhelming. Water traveling through channels, wind making passage through palm leaves, voices rising briefly, then achieving settlement again. These sounds underwent blending together, generating a steady background that supported calm rather than fracturing it. As midday heat made its daily return, people demonstrated respect toward it. They did not force their way through exhaustion. They adjusted their pace accordingly. Rest received serious treatment, not as indulgence but as survival necessity. Shade acquired value. Stillness received welcome. The body underwent natural recovery when permitted to decelerate. Time during these hours felt expansive. No sense existed of experiencing delay or falling behind. Moments extended gently, permitting thought to wander or settle into quiet. Even complete inactivity felt purposeful in nature because it preserved energy for subsequent requirements. When the sun initiated its gradual descent, the landscape responded with visible changes. Light underwent softening, air achieved cooling, movement made natural return. People resumed tasks without requiring reminders. Work resumed not with urgency but with composed attention. Afternoons frequently carried greater quiet than mornings. Exertion was measured carefully. Tasks underwent careful completion. Some work remained unfinished without generating concern. Tomorrow would deliver another opportunity. Life was not constructed from single days, but from extended continuity. Evening made its return in familiar fashion. The land exhaled. The river reflected transforming colors. People turned inward, gathering themselves back into homes and shared spaces. The external world softened and attention contracted gently. Night did not inspire fear. It received trust. Darkness delivered rest without argument. Lamps received sparing use. Firelight produced brief flickering, then dimmed. The sky filled with stars that felt proximate and familiar. Sleep followed in natural fashion. Bodies rested profoundly, supported by a life experienced within natural boundaries. Dreams arrived quietly and departed without disturbance. The night advanced without urgency, transporting the land gently toward morning. Thus the cycle repeated itself, not as something imposed externally, but as something accepted willingly. Day succeeded night. Labor succeeded rest. The river maintained its flow, unchanged and dependable. Within this steady repetition, life throughout ancient Egypt continued its unfolding, calm, patient, and deeply rooted in the rhythm of the surrounding world. As days flowed in quiet fashion into one another, the perception of time in ancient Egypt remained broad and unhurried. People did not quantify their lives in abbreviated units. They experienced time as something continuous, something that transported them rather than something requiring pursuit. Each sunrise felt familiar, not because it lacked importance, but because it could receive trust. Morning rituals repeated themselves with minor variations. Sometimes air arrived cooler, sometimes heavier with warmth, sometimes clouds softened the light, sometimes the sky maintained clarity and openness. These changes underwent notice, acceptance, and gentle incorporation into the day. No adjustment felt dramatic in nature. Life adapted itself in slow fashion. The Nile continued directing these adaptations. Its seasonal rise and fall shaped expectations long before they shaped action. When the river initiated its swelling, people prepared without anxiety. They reinforced banks, adjusted fields, and waited. Patience was not optional in character. It was a component of understanding how the land functioned. During these periods, work became quieter and more deliberate in execution. People devoted closer attention to small details. The manna water pooled, the manna soil responded, the manna plants leaned toward illumination. Observation held greater importance than speed. Those who watched with care labored with reduced effort. Throughout the villages, the rhythm of communal life deepened. People relied upon one another not through constant communication, but through predictable presence. A person occupied their expected location, performing their expected activity. This reliability generated calm. Little need existed to concern oneself with others' activities. All participants followed the same natural order. Within home interiors, daily life unfolded with gentle quality. Tasks such as grain grinding, food preparation, clothing repair, or supply storage were executed slowly, frequently alongside others. These intervals were not isolated obligations. They represented opportunities for quiet companionship. Silence carried comfort. Conversation, when it materialized, was unforced. Children moved with freedom through these spaces, learning through presence. They rarely experienced rushing. They rarely remained idle. Their days filled with small responsibilities and extended periods of observation. They learned when to provide help and when to retreat. This awareness developed naturally across time. As the sun achieved its height each day, The land entered its familiar pause. Movement underwent slowing, voices softened, bodies rested where shade permitted. The heat did not register as an adversary, it registered as a signal reminding all participants to conserve energy. Rest during these hours did not receive questioning, it received expectation. Time during midday felt suspended in quality. Thoughts wandered with gentle quality. Some people experienced light sleep. Others simply sat, breathing in slow fashion, listening to the world continue in proximity. Water flowed. Wind made movement through leaves. Life did not cease. It simply softened. When heat eased its intensity, activity made its return without announcement. People rose, stretched, and resumed their labor. The body registered readiness once more. No sense existed of experiencing interruption. Rest and exertion belonged together, each supporting the other. Afternoons frequently possessed a reflective character. Illumination grew warmer in quality. Shadows achieved greater extension. Tasks underwent careful completion, with focus directed toward leaving circumstances in proper order. Tools received cleaning. Supplies underwent inspection. Nothing experienced careless abandonment. Tomorrow's preparation formed part of today's conclusion. With evening's approach, the landscape initiated its gradual transition once more. Air underwent cooling. The river darkened in appearance. The world contracted gently, drawing focus back toward domestic spaces. People made their return along familiar routes, transporting the quiet contentment that accompanies effort, both given and received. Within home interiors, evening registered as release. Fires were kindled at low intensity. Lamps produced brief glow. The external world faded into background existence. Meals maintained simplicity and nourishment, restoring what daylight had extracted without excess. Conversation flowed with gentle quality, or not at all. Both conditions felt appropriate. The body achieved natural relaxation as darkness deepened. Muscular tension found release. Respiration decelerated. The day no longer made additional demands. Night made its full arrival, delivering calm that felt complete. Stars populated the sky. Desert temperatures dropped with rapidity. The river maintained its endless movement, constant and steady. Homes settled into motionlessness. Sleep arrived without encountering resistance. It came as natural extension of the day, not as escape from it. Dreams assembled quietly, then dissolved with equal gentleness. Rest ran deep and brought renewal. Throughout the night's duration, nothing commanded attention. The world existed in equilibrium, suspended between darkness and light's promise. Time stretched expansively and without interruption. Thus, life throughout ancient Egypt persisted, shaped not by urgency or excess, but by rhythm. A rhythm permitting effort when light made its return, rest when darkness arrived, and calm in the intervals between. As this rhythm maintained its continuation across successive days, people developed profound familiarity with continuity's sensation. Life did not demand perpetual adjustment. Instead, it extended invitation to steady participation. Identical paths underwent walking. Identical fields received tending. Identical movements returned repeatedly, not as burdens, but as anchors, maintaining everything in position. Morning illumination remained a quiet guide. It did not issue commands for action, but it disclosed what already waited: the riverbank, the fields, the implements resting where they had been positioned the previous evening. People stepped into the day without questioning its configuration. The day unfolded as it perpetually had. Throughout the fields, work registered as simultaneously physical and calm. Hands moved through soil that had received contact from innumerable preceding generations. Each gesture transported memory. The manna water received guidance into channels. The manna plants received support during growth. These actions were not innovations, they represented continuations. The Nile itself registered as a living presence, not dramatic but dependable. Its surface transformed with light and wind, but its purpose remained unchanging. It nourished the land, it indicated the seasons, it reminded people that life advanced steadily forward, independent of individual exertion. Throughout the villages, daily existence underwent shaping by proximity. People inhabited close quarters, not in crowded fashion, but in connected manner. Sounds traveled with ease, footfalls, subdued voices, the scraping of implements. These sounds generated awareness rather than disturbance. All participants knew who occupied nearby space and what was occurring, without requiring visual confirmation. Homes embraced this closeness with gentle quality. Rooms maintained simplicity and openness. Light gained entry where circumstances permitted. Shade received welcome where it established itself. The walls did not create isolation from the external world. They softened it, permitting rest without complete separation. Tasks within the home underwent slow execution. Grain experienced patient grinding, food underwent preparation without urgency, clothing received careful repair rather than replacement. These activities populated the day without overwhelming it. They demanded attention, but they simultaneously permitted the mind to maintain calm. Children developed into this world in gradual fashion. They did not experience rushing toward adulthood. Responsibility arrived slowly, accumulated across time. Small tasks transformed into larger ones. Observation converted into participation. By the time full work became expected of them, the rhythm already inhabited them internally. With midday's return, stillness returned as well. The landscape shimmered within the heat. Movement underwent natural slowing. People rested without resistance, comprehending that strength underwent preservation through pause equally as through effort. Shade was not escape. It formed component of the day's design. Time during these hours felt expansive in nature. No sense existed of experiencing loss in stopping. Nothing of importance underwent missing. Life continued in quiet fashion, even when bodies remained motionless. The river maintained its flow, wind made movement through leaves, the sky shifted in slow fashion overhead. When heat eased its intensity, the body responded without instruction. Movement made its return, tasks resumed. No sensation existed of starting over. Rest and labor belonged to identical flow, each preparing conditions for the other. Afternoon illumination softened in gradual fashion. Shadows achieved lengthening. The landscape appeared to slow its breathing. People completed what circumstances allowed and released what could await continuation. No anxiety existed regarding incomplete work. Tomorrow was already comprehended to exist, and the homeward return felt natural and unremarkable, and that unremarkable quality delivered comfort. Identical doorways, identical walls, identical familiar arrangements. These repetitions provided reassurance to the body that life remained stable. Evenings transported a sense of closure. Fires received gentle lighting. Lamps produced brief glow. Darkness gained entry without resistance. The external world faded into background presence, still there but no longer demanding attention. Meals underwent calm consumption. Hunger achieved satisfaction. Thirst found ease. Conversation drifted with light quality or not at all. Silence occupied the space with ease, transporting no expectation. With nights deepening, the sky opened in full. Stars appeared sharp and innumerable. The desert underwent cooling. The river darkened into a smooth, moving ribbon of quiet. The world felt held, balanced between motion and stillness. Sleep followed without exertion. Bodies rested profoundly, supported by days experienced within natural boundaries. Respiration slowed. Muscular systems released. The mind loosened its grasp on thought and drifted. Throughout the night, nothing commanded attention. Time stretched expansively and with calm. The landscape rested precisely where it belonged. As morning prepared to make its return once more, life throughout ancient Egypt remained steady and complete, transported forward by repetition, patience, and confidence in a rhythm that had never required hurrying. As the landscape rested between one cycle and the subsequent one, quiet understanding existed that nothing essential required transformation. Life throughout ancient Egypt did not advance toward something unknown, it advanced within something familiar. Each day reinforced what the previous one had already taught, that stability emerged from alignment with the world, not from resisting it. The Nile remained the central presence, shaping thought equally as action. People did not wake each morning questioning what the river might execute. They placed trust in it. Its patterns were known, its moods observed across lifetimes. When it rose, they prepared. When it withdrew, they adjusted. This trust diminished uncertainty and permitted the mind to maintain calm. Daily labor reflected this mindset. Effort was steady, not forced. People labored because labor formed part of living, not because they were pursuing an outcome. Fields underwent patient tending. Channels received careful maintenance. Each small adjustment held significance, not because it delivered immediate reward, but because it preserved equilibrium across time. Throughout the villages, existence unfolded at a pace permitting observation. People registered small transformations. The manner light fell with difference on a wall, the manner wind shifted during afternoon hours, the manner the river sounded following a long day of heat. These details were not distractions, they were signals, quietly informing decisions without urgency. Homes remained open and familiar. Doorways framed the day's movement. Courtyards gathered illumination in morning hours and shade during afternoon. Walls held the memory of innumerable days, their surfaces worn smooth through contact. These spaces did not demand attention. They offered comfort through familiarity. Within interior spaces, daily tasks continued without pressure. Grain underwent slow grinding, the rhythm of stone against stone, steady and calming. Food underwent preparation with care, not embellishment. Clothing underwent mending rather than replacement, each repair extending utility rather than signaling scarcity. These actions generated continuity, linking past exertion to present requirement. Children remained in proximity, learning through closeness rather than instruction. They observed how adults paused during heat, how they returned to labor when light softened, how they ceased when darkness arrived. These lessons settled quietly into the body, becoming instinct long before comprehension occurred. With midday heat's daily return, stillness followed in natural fashion. The landscape shimmered with slight intensity. Movement underwent slowing. People rested in their current locations, trusting that pause preserved strength. No one questioned this rhythm. It had demonstrated itself across generations. Time during these hours felt suspended. Thoughts drifted with gentle quality. Some people experienced light sleep. Others simply sat, listening to the world's continuation around them. The river flowed. Leaves shifted within the breeze. Life did not cease. It softened. When heat eased, activity made its return with equal gentleness. Bodies rose without strain. Tasks resumed without urgency. No sense existed of interruption. Rest and labor belonged to the same continuous flow. Afternoons frequently transported quiet clarity. Light grew warmer. Shadows achieved lengthening. People became more deliberate, finishing tasks with care, leaving circumstances in order. Tools were positioned thoughtfully. Supplies underwent checking. Tomorrow's preparation formed part of honoring today. With evening's approach, the landscape responded with visible changes. Air underwent cooling. Light softened further still. The river reflected deeper color variations. People turned back towards home, their movements slower now, guided by familiarity rather than thought. Evening delivered a sense of completion. Fires were kindled at low intensity, lamps produced brief glow. Darkness gained entry without resistance. The external world receded with gentleness, permitting attention to narrow and settle. Meals underwent calm consumption. Hunger achieved satisfaction. Thirst found ease. Conversation drifted with light quality or not at all. Silence occupied the space without discomfort. The body recognized that exertion had concluded. Night made its full arrival, delivering deep and steady calm. Stars populated the sky, clear and innumerable. The desert underwent rapid cooling, the river darkened, its movement smooth and unbroken. Sleep followed in natural fashion. Bodies rested profoundly, supported by days experienced within natural boundaries. Respiration slowed, muscular systems released, thought softened and drifted. Throughout the night, nothing commanded attention. Time stretched expansively and without hurry. The landscape rested precisely where it belonged. As the horizon prepared once more to receive the sun, life throughout ancient Egypt remained steady and complete, transported forward by repetition, directed by the river, molded by light, and sustained by a rhythm that did not require hurrying. As the initial pale illumination of another morning slowly achieved the land, it did not announce itself. It simply arrived, distributing gently across the horizon and settling over the river. The Nile accepted the light without reflection or resistance, transporting it forward in quiet ripples that advanced steadily toward the fields. Nothing transformed suddenly. The world shifted almost without receiving notice. Within home interiors, people remained in sleep for additional time. Rest was deep and complete, shaped by darkness and physical exertion rather than distraction. Respiration maintained slow and even rhythm. Bodies rested where they had settled the previous night, held by familiarity rather than intention. The night had not been something to endure, it had been something to inhabit. In gradual fashion, waking arrived, not simultaneously. One individual stirred, then another. Eyes parted slowly, adjusting to soft light filtering into the room. Muscles stretched with gentle quality, not from obligation, but because the body was prepared to move again. No pressure existed to rise immediately. Morning would not elapse if it was encountered with calm. Doors parted quietly. Cool air gained entry to the rooms, transporting the scent of water and earth. People stepped beyond and paused, sensing the temperature against their skin. The landscape appeared identical to the previous day, and that sameness provided reassurance. The river flowed, the sky widened. Another day had initiated. Water was drawn once more from vessels and from the river itself. Hands and faces underwent slow washing, permitting the coolness to linger. Linen garments underwent adjustment for comfort. These movements demanded no thought. They formed part of the body's memory, linking this morning to innumerable previous ones. Throughout the fields, the day's labor resumed without discussion. Those who farmed walked familiar routes. Implements balanced with ease across their shoulders. Soil felt cool beneath unshod feet. Channels underwent inspection, careful adjustment where water required guidance. The sound produced by flowing water was steady and calm, merging seamlessly into morning air. Animals moved in quiet fashion alongside people. Oxen received gentle guidance, their pace mirroring human movement's pace. No requirement existed to rush them. The day would unfold at its inherent speed, independent of impatience. Cooperation, not force, transported the work forward. Near the riverbanks, those who fished returned to their routines. Nets were elevated and examined. Baskets underwent arrangement. Sometimes the river offered more, sometimes less. Both received acceptance without frustration. The Nile was not evaluated by what it provided on a single day. It received trust across time. Boats drifted outward into the current, their movement smooth and predictable. Travel was slow but certain. Distances were known not through measurement but through how long the journey had perpetually required. The body remembered these matters without effort. Throughout the towns, life stirred with gentle quality. Courtyards filled with early illumination. The sound of grain undergoing grinding echoed softly between walls. bread warmed above small fires. People acknowledged one another quietly, recognizing presence rather than exchanging information. All participants already knew what the day would deliver. Workshops opened as illumination strengthened. Craftspeople returned to incomplete tasks, their hands discovering familiar positions without hesitation. Clay turned in slow fashion beneath steady fingers. Looms resumed their quiet rhythm. Stone underwent patient shaping, one careful movement at a time. Progress was slow but reliable, accumulating quietly. With the sun's continued climb, warmth made its return. Bodies responded in natural fashion, slowing movement and conserving energy. Shade acquired value once more. People paused in their current locations, resting without guilt or explanation. Heat was not something to overcome, it was something to respect. Midday made its arrival without ceremony. The landscape shimmered with slight intensity, sound softened, stillness distributed itself naturally. People remained in position, sitting or reclining where shade permitted. Some experienced light sleep, others simply breathed, listening to water's movement and wind's passage through leaves. Time felt expansive and unpressured. When heat initiated its easing, movement made gentle return. People rose without strain. Labor resumed without urgency. No sense existed of interruption. Rest and exertion belonged together, each preparing conditions for the other. The afternoon transported quiet focus. Tasks underwent careful completion. Tools received cleaning and were positioned aside thoughtfully. Fields underwent final checking. Nothing experienced abandonment. Everything was positioned ready for tomorrow, not from anxiety but from habit. With the sun's lowering, light softened once more. Shadows lengthened across the landscape. Air cooled in slight degree, enough to receive notice. People sensed the day releasing its grip. Labor faded in natural fashion, following the same gradual rhythm as light's own transformation. The homeward return felt familiar and grounding. Routes were known, doorways extended welcome. Within interior spaces, rooms retained shade's coolness and the memory of innumerable evenings. Fires were kindled at low intensity. Lamps received sparing use. Darkness was permitted entry without resistance. Meals underwent quiet sharing. Hunger achieved satisfaction. Thirst found ease. Conversation drifted in and out, never forced. Silence occupied the space with ease, transporting no expectation. The body recognized that exertion had concluded. Beyond the walls, the desert underwent rapid cooling. The sky achieved complete darkness. Stars appeared clear and steady, populating the night without competition. The river darkened into a smooth-moving presence, its sound steady and reassuring, and as lamps underwent dimming, homes settled into stillness. Bedding received simple arrangement. Bodies discovered rest without effort. Muscles released the day's accumulated tension. Respiration slowed. Thought softened and drifted. Sleep made gentle arrival, not as escape, but as continuation. Dreams assembled quietly, shaped by familiar imagery of water, earth, and sky. Rest was deep and brought renewal. Throughout the night, nothing commanded attention. Time stretched expansively and with calm. The landscape rested precisely where it belonged. Thus, life throughout ancient Egypt persisted, transported forward by repetition rather than urgency, shaped by patience rather than speed, and sustained by a rhythm that had never required transformation. As the rhythm of days and nights maintained continuation without interruption, existence along the Nile settled with even greater depth into familiarity. Nothing about the world registered as rushed or uncertain. The repetition itself generated stability. Each day confirmed what the previous one had already demonstrated, that life advanced most favorably when it followed the quiet direction of light, water, and the body's natural boundaries. Morning after morning, the landscape received the sun in identical, gentle fashion. Light crept across the river, made contact with the fields, and rested against the walls of homes that had stood across generations. People stepped into this light with calm, already comprehending what the day would contain. Comfort resided in that comprehension. It liberated the mind from worry and permitted attention to rest fully in the present. Labor unfolded as it perpetually had, not as burden but as steady engagement with the world. Throughout the fields, hands moved through soil that had undergone innumerable previous tendings. Each gesture felt familiar, almost automatic, yet never careless. Care was constructed into repetition. Water received patient guidance. Plants received gentle support. The landscape responded in slow fashion, as it perpetually did. Near the riverbanks, daily activity remained quiet and measured. Those who fished examined their nets with identical practiced movements they had absorbed long ago. Sometimes the river offered abundance, sometimes it offered little. Both received acceptance with identical calm comprehension. The Nile was not something to make demands from. It was something to inhabit space alongside. Boats maintained steady movement along familiar routes. Travel did not register as transition or escape. It registered as component of the same continuous landscape. Oars entered the water, elevating and descending in rhythm matching respiration. Journeys concluded where they perpetually had, without urgency or delay. Throughout towns and villages, the proximity of daily existence generated a sense of shared awareness. People knew one another's patterns without close watching. They heard familiar footfalls. They recognized voices without requiring visual confirmation of faces. This familiarity diminished tension. Nothing unexpected received requirement. Within home interiors, daily tasks populated the hours with gentle quality. Grain underwent slow grinding, the sound of stone against stone steady and soothing. Food underwent preparation with attention but without embellishment. Clothing underwent careful repair, extending its utility rather than replacing it. These actions did not compete for time. They populated it naturally. Children developed within this environment of calm repetition. They did not experience pushing forward or holding back. They advanced at their inherent pace, learning through observation and participating when readiness arrived. Responsibility made gradual arrival, layered gently across time. By the time full contribution became expected, the rhythm already inhabited them internally. With midday's daily return, stillness returned as well. Heat settled across the landscape, and movement softened without resistance. People rested where shade permitted, placing trust in their bodies to undergo recovery. No guilt existed in stopping. Rest was comprehended as component of living, not as productivity's absence. Time during these hours felt open and expansive. Some people experienced light sleep, others sat in quiet fashion, listening to the world's continuation around them. Water flowed, leaves shifted within the breeze, the sky moved in slow fashion overhead. Life did not pause, it simply transformed its tone. When heat eased, movement made natural return. People rose without strain and resumed their tasks. No sense existed of beginning again. Rest and exertion belonged to identical flow, each preparing conditions for the other. Afternoons transported gentle clarity. Light grew warmer. Shadows achieved lengthening. People became more deliberate, finishing what circumstances allowed and leaving what could await continuation. Tools received cleaning and were positioned aside thoughtfully. Fields underwent final checking. Nothing experienced rushing, nothing experienced neglect. With evening's approach, the landscape initiated its familiar transition. Air underwent cooling, light softened further still. The river reflected deeper color variations. People turned back toward home, their footsteps slower now, guided by familiarity rather than thought. Evening delivered quiet sense of completion. Fires were kindled at low intensity, lamps produced brief glow. Darkness gained entry without resistance. The external world receded with gentleness, permitting attention to narrow and settle. Meals underwent calm sharing. Hunger achieved satisfaction, thirst found ease. Conversation drifted with gentle quality or not at all. Silence occupied the space without discomfort. The body recognized that exertion had concluded. Night made its full arrival, transporting deep and steady calm. Stars populated the sky, clear and innumerable. The desert underwent rapid cooling. The river darkened into a smooth-moving presence, its sound steady and reassuring. Sleep followed without effort. Bodies rested profoundly, supported by days experienced within natural boundaries. Respiration slowed, muscular systems released, thought softened and drifted. Throughout the night, nothing commanded attention. Time stretched expansively and without hurry. The landscape rested precisely where it belonged as another morning prepared to make its return. Life throughout ancient Egypt remained steady and complete, transported forward by repetition, directed by the river, molded by light, and sustained by a rhythm that had never required hurrying. As the seasons underwent slow shifting, the transformations were sensed gently rather than noticed with sharpness. Life throughout ancient Egypt did not turn suddenly from one condition to another. It advanced gradually, permitting people and landscape to adjust in tandem. The river's level altered the day's configuration, and people responded with patience rather than concern. When the Nile initiated its rising, no surprise existed. Its movement had undergone careful observation across generations. The water crept in outward direction, making contact with field edges and leaving behind dark, fertile soil. This was not perceived as disruption, but as renewal. People prepared in quiet fashion, reinforcing boundaries where requirements existed, waiting where waiting received requirement. During these periods, daily routines softened further still. Some labor paused in natural fashion, other tasks assumed its position. Life underwent adjustment without losing its rhythm. People placed trust in the process because they had witnessed its return repeatedly. Memory inhabited not only stories, but the landscape itself. Throughout the villages, activity remained calm and steady. Supplies underwent checking, food underwent careful storage, repairs were executed where requirements existed. Nothing was executed in haste. The future did not register as threatening. It registered as familiar. Children observed these preparations with close attention, learning not fear but awareness. They witnessed adults responding to transformation without anxiety, adjusting exertion without complaint. These lessons remained with them, shaping how they would subsequently encounter uncertainty. The days maintained continuation following their familiar arc. Mornings delivered cool air and gentle illumination. Midday extended invitation to stillness. Afternoons transported quiet focus. Evenings released exertion without struggle. Nights restored what daylight had required. Sound remained gentle throughout all of it. Water traveling through channels, wind making contact against reeds, voices rising briefly then achieving settlement again. These sounds underwent blending together, generating steady background that supported calm rather than fracturing it. Within home interiors, existence unfolded in slow fashion. Tasks underwent sharing. Silence was common. Familiarity populated the space more than words could ever accomplish. People did not require constant self-explanation. Being present proved sufficient. With darkness's arrival each evening, it registered as earned rather than imposed. Lamps received brief lighting, then dimming. Firelight produced gentle flickering against walls that had witnessed innumerable previous nights. The external world faded with gentleness, not disappearing but receding into background presence. Sleep arrived as trusted companion. It came when exertion concluded and departed when light made its return. No struggle existed to release the day. The body comprehended when rest time had arrived. Dreams moved in quiet fashion through the night, shaped by daily life's rhythms. Water, earth, light, and shadow appeared and dissolved without urgency. Rest was deep and brought renewal. The river maintained its movement through all of this, constant and patient. It did not accelerate toward tomorrow, it did not linger in yesterday. It flowed, steady and reliable, transporting life forward without pause. Time itself appeared to follow this example. It did not rush, it did not cease. It moved with gentleness, permitting each moment to exist fully before yielding to the subsequent one. Thus, life throughout ancient Egypt persisted, calm, enduring, and profoundly rooted in repetition. Days succeeded nights. Labor succeeded rest. Transformation arrived in slow fashion and departed with equal gentleness. Nothing required forcing, nothing required fearing. Life unfolded as it perpetually had, directed by the river, molded by the sun, and held together by a rhythm offering both exertion and peace. Across time, this steady manner of living shaped how people comprehended themselves and their position in the world. Life throughout ancient Egypt did not encourage perpetual self-questioning. Identity was not constructed through comparison or ambition, but through participation. A person knew who they were because of what they executed each day, who they inhabited space beside, and how they moved within the rhythm shared by all surrounding them. Morning after morning, identical actions made their return, and with them arrived quiet sense of belonging. Drawing water, preparing food, walking familiar routes, tending the landscape, these were not small or insignificant acts. They formed existence's foundation. Each one connected the present moment to preceding generations, generating a sense of continuity, requiring no explanation. The Nile continued reinforcing this sensation. Its presence was constant, reassuring, and undeniable. People did not imagine existence apart from it. The river was not scenery, it was structure. It shaped where people inhabited, how they labored, when they rested, and what they anticipated from the future. Confidence in the river diminished uncertainty and permitted life to maintain calm, even when circumstances shifted. Daily labor, repeated endlessly, did not dull the spirit. Instead, it grounded it. Familiar movements provided the mind space to rest. Hands knew what to execute, and in that knowing, thoughts softened. Labor transformed into a form of quiet focus rather than strain. Progress arrived slowly, but it arrived steadily. Throughout the fields, the landscape responded to care across time. Crops developed at their inherent pace. People did not measure success day by day. They comprehended that growth could not undergo rushing. Patience was not something practiced with deliberation, it was simply how matters were executed. Throughout the villages, shared existence persisted without tension. People relied upon one another not through constant communication, but through predictable presence. All participants followed identical rhythms. All participants rested when heat demanded it. All participants slowed when evening made its arrival. This alignment diminished conflict and generated a sense of ease. Homes remained locations of refuge rather than exhibition. Their simplicity rendered them practical and comforting. Illumination gained entry when circumstances permitted. Shade provided protection when requirements arose. Walls retained warmth and memory. These spaces did not undergo frequent transformation, and that stability delivered reassurance. Within interior spaces, daily tasks unfolded with gentle quality. Food preparation, storage, repair, and care populated the hours without overwhelming them. Nothing required rapid execution, nothing required perfection. Completion held greater significance than appearance. Children developed into this environment without pressure. They were surrounded by examples of composed exertion and respectful rest. They absorbed that existence was not something to race through, but something to move within. Responsibility made gradual arrival, accumulated gently across time. With the sun's achievement of its height each day, stillness made its return as naturally as respiration. The landscape shimmered within the heat. Bodies underwent slowing. Rest followed without resistance. Shade received welcome. Silence settled with ease. These hours did not register as empty. They registered as spacious. Thought wandered. or rested. The world maintained quiet continuation. Even when people remained motionless, water flowed, wind made movement, the sky turned in slow fashion overhead. When heat eased its intensity, activity resumed without announcement. Bodies rose, hands made their return to labor. No sense existed of interruption. Rest and exertion belonged to the same continuous flow. Afternoons transported quiet attentiveness. Light underwent softening. Shadows achieved lengthening. People labored with greater deliberation now, finishing tasks with care, leaving circumstances in proper order. Tools received cleaning and were positioned where they would undergo easy retrieval. Tomorrow was already comprehended to exist. With evening's approach, the landscape prepared itself once more. Air underwent cooling, light deepened, the river reflected darker color variations. People turned back towards home, their footsteps unhurried, guided by familiarity rather than thought. Evening delivered closure without finality. Fires were kindled at low intensity, lamps produced brief glow. Darkness gained entry without resistance. The external world receded with gentleness, permitting attention to narrow and settle. Meals underwent calm sharing. Hunger found ease. Thirst achieved satisfaction. Conversation drifted with gentle quality or not at all. Silence occupied the space without discomfort. The body registered that exertion had concluded. Night made its full arrival, transporting deep and steady calm. Stars populated the sky, clear and innumerable. The desert underwent rapid cooling. The river darkened into a smooth, moving presence, its sound steady and reassuring. Sleep followed in natural fashion. Bodies rested profoundly, supported by days experienced within natural boundaries. Respiration slowed, muscular systems released, thought softened and drifted. Throughout the night, nothing commanded attention. Time stretched expansively, and without hurry, the landscape rested precisely where it belonged. As morning prepared once more to make its return, life throughout ancient Egypt remained steady and complete, transported forward by repetition, directed by the river, molded by light, and sustained by a rhythm permitting both exertion and peace to exist in proximity to one another. As another extended interval of days passed in quiet fashion along the Nile, the sensation of continuity deepened with even greater intensity. Existence did not present itself as a succession of events, but a steady presence surrounding everything people executed. No sharp boundary existed between one task and the subsequent one, between labor and rest, between yesterday and today. Everything merged into a single, unbroken experience. Morning illumination maintained its gentle arrival, distributing across the landscape without urgency. The river accepted it with calm, reflecting pale brightness in slow-moving configurations. People stepped into the day without expectation. They did not question what the day might deliver. They placed trust in its unfolding through familiar patterns. Throughout the fields, hands made their return to soil with practiced ease. The earth registered as cool during early hours, retaining the night within it for additional time. Those who farmed labored quietly, adjusting water channels, examining plants, observing small transformations that only sustained attention could disclose. Nothing demanded immediate action. Decisions were executed slowly, directed by observation rather than impulse. The Nile remained constant throughout all of this. Its sound populated the background of existence, steady and reassuring. People did not require constant visual confirmation to know it occupied its position. Its presence registered as felt, even when unseen. It shaped thought equally as movement, reminding all participants that life flowed forward at its inherent pace. Near the riverbanks, daily routines persisted with patience. Those who fished moved in slow fashion, elevating nets and baskets with care. They accepted whatever the river provided that day without frustration or excitement. Abundance and scarcity were both temporary conditions, and neither defined the river itself. Confidence remained stronger than reaction. Boats drifted in steady fashion along familiar routes. Travel registered as extension rather than interruption. Journeys initiated and concluded without ceremony. The body remembered the route long before the mind thought about it. Oars entered the water, rising and descending in rhythm, matching respiration and heartbeat. Throughout the village's existence unfolded in close and contained fashion. Sounds traveled with ease, gentle voices, footfalls on compacted earth, the scraping of implements being positioned down. These sounds generated awareness, not disturbance. People felt connection without requiring constant interaction. Familiarity diminished tension. Homes maintained their provision of quiet refuge. Their simplicity rendered them adaptable and comforting. Illumination gained entry where circumstances permitted. Shade settled where requirements existed. Walls retained warmth and memory, smoothing the edges of both heat and coolness. These spaces did not demand attention. They permitted existence to occur within them. Within interior spaces, daily tasks populated the hours with gentle quality. Grain underwent grinding with steady motion. Food underwent slow preparation without excess. Clothing underwent careful mending, each repair extending utility rather than signaling deficiency. These activities did not experience rushing, they underwent natural integration into the day's flow. Children remained in proximity, absorbing everything without instruction. They learned when to provide help, when to pause, when to observe. Responsibility made gradual arrival, accumulated gently across time. By the time full contribution became expected, the rhythm already inhabited them internally. With midday heat's return, stillness returned as well. The landscape shimmered with faint quality, movement softened. People rested where shade permitted, placing trust in their bodies to undergo recovery. No guilt existed in stopping. Rest was comprehended as necessary, not optional. Time during these hours felt open and expansive. Some experienced light sleep, others sat in quiet fashion, listening to water's movement and wind's passage through leaves. Thought wandered with gentle quality or settled into silence. Existence continued even within stillness. When heat eased, activity made its return without announcement. Bodies rose without strain, labor resumed with calm. No sense existed of restarting. Rest and exertion belonged to identical continuous movement. Afternoons transported quiet attentiveness. Light grew warmer. Shadows achieved lengthening. People labored with greater deliberation now, finishing tasks with care, leaving circumstances in proper order. Tools received cleaning and were positioned where they would undergo easy retrieval. Tomorrow was already assumed to exist. With evening's approach, the landscape responded with visible changes. Air underwent cooling, light softened further still. The river reflected deeper color variations. People turned back toward home, their footsteps slower now, guided by familiarity rather than thought. Evening delivered closure without finality. Fires were kindled at low intensity, lamps produced brief glow, darkness gained entry without resistance. The external world receded with gentleness, permitting attention to narrow and settle. Meals underwent calm sharing. Hunger found ease. Thirst achieved satisfaction. Conversation drifted with gentle quality or not at all. Silence occupied the space without discomfort. The body registered that exertion had concluded. Night made its full arrival, transporting deep and steady calm. Stars populated the sky, clear and innumerable. The desert underwent rapid cooling. The river darkened into a smooth, moving presence, its sound steady and reassuring. Sleep followed in natural fashion. Bodies rested profoundly, supported by days experienced within natural boundaries. Respiration slowed. Muscular systems released. Thought softened and drifted. Throughout the night, Nothing commanded attention. Time stretched expansively and without hurry. The landscape rested precisely where it belonged. As the horizon prepared once more to receive the sun, life throughout ancient Egypt remained steady and complete, transported forward by repetition, directed by the river, molded by light, and sustained by a rhythm that never required hurrying. With the cycle of existence's continuation along the Nile, nothing registered as incomplete. Days did not demand conclusions. Nights did not pose questions. Existence advanced forward without urgency, transported by repetition and familiarity rather than by transformation. The river flowed as it perpetually had, steady and patient. It did not mark time in years or generations. It simply moved, shaping the landscape quietly, offering what received requirement and withdrawing when the time arrived. People inhabited space beside it without attempting control, learning instead how to listen. Homes rested within the gentle equilibrium between illumination and shade. Walls retained the memory of innumerable mornings and evenings. Floors remember the weight of many footfalls. These spaces did not require newness to register as complete. Their familiarity constituted their strength. Labor persisted day after day, not as burden, but as participation in the world. Exertion was provided when light permitted. Rest followed when darkness made its arrival. Nothing additional received requirement. Nothing less received expectation. Silence remained companion rather than absence. It populated spaces with gentle quality, permitting thought to decelerate and the body to soften. Darkness did not inspire fear. It received trust. It delivered rest, renewal, and the quiet certainty that morning would make its return. Sleep arrived in natural fashion, transporting the body into stillness. Respiration slowed. Muscular systems released their exertion. The mind drifted without resistance. Dreams moved with gentle quality and faded with equal softness. Beyond the walls, the night sky stretched expansively and with clarity. Stars turned in slow fashion overhead, constant and dependable. The desert underwent cooling. The river maintained its endless journey, unaffected by human rest, yet profoundly connected to it. As another morning waited beyond the horizon, life throughout ancient Egypt remained steady and complete, directed by water and light, molded by patience, and sustained by a rhythm requesting nothing beyond being followed. Nothing required hurrying, nothing required forcing. Existence simply persisted, calm and enduring, transported forward by time itself.